speaker from Gleaners Food Bank of Indiana. I'm coming to talk to you today about getting some more energy around the food drive. And his name is Darren Boyd. He's very awesome. He was here last year, so please give him.
Can't believe she's nervous. Get this unwound. How many of you were here last year? Gee, looks to be about half. Does anybody remember any facts from last year? Anybody remember anything that I said last year? Most people that go hungry are children. That is a fact. Who remembers one other fact? I just hate to think that I'm wasting my breath. Anybody remember anything from last year? Where? Go ahead. Where? I'm still there.
You talked about the meaning of the word Gleaners, the history of the word, where it came from.
I did indeed say that. So I don't have to repeat those things, right? Just kidding. Well, let me give you a history again because refreshing our memory is good. Gleaning actually started, for those of you who are scholars, actually has a biblical derivative. It comes from the book of Leviticus, chapter 19. It talks about the children of Israel as they're planting their gardens. Don't pick everything, leave some, then the gleaners are going to come and then they're going to give that food to the hungry. Essentially, our mission is exactly the same, except for our field now today is manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, distributors. From the time that I was here last until now, we've extremely increased retail store pickups. I think the last time I was here, we were probably picking up about 30 stores. We're now picking up about 130 stores. And to give you a little, let me digress a little bit. Gleaners is actually part of Second Harvest, which is the national food banking network, of which there are about 200. We actually have 8 food banks in Indiana, and Gleaners, of course, is the largest. We've recently moved into a 320,000 square foot facility, and we distribute to over 400 charities in 21 different counties. So it's a massive undertaking. But since we've moved to this new building, we found that we have a few problems. The first of which is we used to be on a bus line at the old building, and now at this new building we're not on a bus line, so all of our volunteers can't get to the building anymore. Okay, I'm putting in a shameless plug for volunteerism. But we have about 50 staff members in a 300,000 square foot facility, and our volunteer coordinator would kill me if I didn't say, if you guys have an opportunity, we'd love for you to come out. My job specifically at the food bank is food solicitation, which means I go out. I'm the one that actually goes out and talks to people and convince them to donate. In the last year, we've distributed about 20 million pounds of food. And in the next year, we're looking to increase that to about 40 million pounds of food. And moving that much product is going to take a lot of hands. So let me get into some few statistics, because these are the ones I actually thought you guys would remember. First of all, it should be said that food banks don't actually distribute to individuals. A lot of people think they can go to a food bank and get food. People cannot go to a food bank and get food. Only a not-for-profit 501c3 charity can go to a food bank and get food. And then they, in turn, distribute it to the ill, needy, and hungry. One of the things that I like to share, because usually I'm in an audience, and there's a principle called the 6 degrees of separation that says you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And I said this last time as well, but I was actually in a speech a lot like this one about 4 years ago, talking to second graders, and finished the speech and left. And then about a month later, Walmart called me and she said that his niece was in that speech, and that's actually how we got the Walmart donations. It was the president of Walmart's second grade niece convinced him to donate to Gleaners. So, and they're actually now our most prolific, well, as you would imagine, our most prolific retail donor. They actually have about 42 stores that we pick up from every day. And the best product that we're actually picking up from them is meat. So, and that is a prized possession. because about 8 years ago we got absolutely no meat, and now we're getting, roughly 3 semi-loads of meat every week, which is just great. How many of you have actually been out to the food bank? Have any of you been out to the food bank? I see Daniel has. I see a few hands. Good. What was your first impression of the food bank when you actually, after the tour, and you went through? Did it seem like a warehouse to you? Yeah, most people think when they go to a food bank it's going to be like just a food pantry. It's more like a Sam's Club. If you go into a Sam's Club, if you've ever been to a Sam's Club or Costco, it looks just like a Costco. We're extremely efficient. We have bar coding so that we know when product comes in, when product goes out, where each pallet is, where each box is, and then we're actually able to fill orders of the charities, and then that food actually goes out to the people. One of the things that I'm most impressed about is our ability to get the food to people rapidly. In Indiana, we have about 750,000 people that are at risk for going hungry, and I think somebody said earlier, about 60% of those are children, 18 years or younger. So those are people in your age range, people you might know. And so the food that you guys are given through your food drive, most of that is going to go to children. Now we understand that children that go to school, most have feeding programs at school where you can eat free lunch and free breakfast, but there are some danger times for children. That's after school and during the summer are the most critical times. And to that issue, we have a program called the Backsack program. I'm sorry, it's Kids Cafe program. And the Kids Cafe program is specifically for after-school feeding programs or during the summer. The other time that kids are at most risk for going hungry, your age group, would be during the weekends. And that program would be the Backsack program. It's where we fill a backsack full of kid-friendly food, stuff like cereal, because everybody eats cereal. Shelf-stable milk. Why shelf-stable milk? Because they may live in a house that doesn't have refrigeration, and so the milk has to be shelf-stable. Peanut butter and jelly. I was just talking to somebody about peanut butter and jelly back there. It's a shame we have so many peanut butter allergies, and so we're kind of having to watch that a little bit. And the like, ravioli and all those kind of things. When we started our Backsack program, which is a program I had a lot to do with, we were doing about 500 backpacks, and this is kind of how it works. On Friday, kids come and pick up a backpack, and they take it home, and then on Monday they bring it back. When we started, we were doing 500 backpacks a week. We're now doing, we're ramping up this year to 10,000 backpacks per week. That's good and that's bad. The need is about 60,000 backpacks per week. So we're still underserving. As a food bank in the entire state, we're underserving about 35%. And so it's kind of bittersweet, although we've increased a lot. Actually, I got the award for being the best food solicitor in the entire country this year. But if I'm the best and we still have hunger, that means we all have a lot of work to do. See, because I'm a numbers cruncher, and I look at the numbers, if you took all the soup kitchens, food pantries, missions, food banks in the entire country, we probably distributed roughly about 3.2 billion pounds, an increase of 0.2 billion pounds over last year. But the other side of that is numbers of food that's being thrown away from manufacturers and distributors, food that's typically in a case, and those cases are on a pallet, and that pallet is picked up and thrown away. We're still throwing away roughly about 98 billion pounds of food. So I know that the food is still out there, and I know that we can end. Hunger is not something that we can slow down. Hunger is something we can end today if we decided to as a country. So we're actually distributing 3 billion pounds, but 98 billion pounds of that same product is being thrown away, and that's unconscionable. So I'm gonna open up the floor to a few questions to see if anybody's got any questions. The first question should be, why are they throwing away so much food? I'm gonna go ahead. Somebody ask the question. Glad you asked. Typically, it's greed. There's an erroneous belief of some companies that says if we distribute this food or give this food away, then those people aren't going to buy the food. Newsflash, if they're at a food pantry, they can't afford to buy food anyway. So that kind of blows that whole theory out of the water. Another theory, which kind of makes more sense, is we're afraid of legal liability. We don't want to get sued. We might get sued. Doesn't hold water because in Indiana we have what's called a Good Samaritan law. And if you remember, I said that we glean everything because we, as a food bank, go through everything, every box, every can, every package has to be inspected individually, and then we determine whether it's good or bad. The Good Samaritan law covers them and they're protected from liability, so there's really no reason that they shouldn't donate as well. The last reason, which is the non-reason in my book, is a lot of companies have internally what's called a do not donate clause. And they all kind of sound, they're worded differently, but they sound almost exactly the same. It says something like this: we, XYZ company, won't donate because we've never donated. What the heck is that? So my job as a food solicitor and Gleaners as an entity, it's our job to convince companies like that to donate. But I'm going to solicit all of your help today. If you guys know anybody or know anybody that knows anybody, which you may, that works at a food company, a retailer, a wholesaler, distributor, and you can't convince them, turn them my way. Just say, I know I got a guy. And then get in touch with Dana. Where's Dana? Get in touch with Dana. Dana will reach me, and then I'll get all that information and get back at them. Any more questions?
We're having a food drive here, so somebody could be thinking, if a truck from Walmart can come with 1,000 pounds of fresh chicken, why should I bring in 10 cans? I mean, will that really help?
Good question. For those of you who didn't hear the question, if Walmart can donate a huge, big truckload of product, what's my little can going to do? It goes to diversity of product, firstly. Because the way pantries used to be ran is when you went into a food pantry, they'd give you a bag. In that bag, they'd kind of have like a little microcosm of everything they had. They'd give you some bread, some beans, some rice, chicken, whatever, and they'd give that to you. And then they found that 80% of that food was being thrown away after it was distributed to we thought, families that needed it. Why? People only eat what people eat. You don't, for example, if I give you some dried beans and you take them home and you don't have a stove, what are you going to do, crunch on some beans? That's not a thing. So people only eat what they eat. So it goes to diversity. Good question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
If you said that the only people who can get food are C3 charities, it's non-profits. If someone who's hungry comes into a food pantry, can you guys actually turn them away, or do you guys give them food?
Well, actually, you mean if somebody comes to the food bank?
Yeah.
Well, our building is so large, we're kind of redefining what food banking is all about. We're kind of on the cutting edge, so we actually have a food pantry at the new Gleaners with so much space. We're trying to become the Walmart of not-for-profits, as it were. We want to have a WIC office in there. We want to have a food stamp office. We want to have a medical facility so that it's kind of a one-stop shop. You don't have to go all over the place to get your social services. You just come to the one place and get all your needs met. So, no, they don't get turned away, but then we would used to have to turn them away because as a 501c3 charity ourselves, we can only distribute to other 501c3 charities. But there is a national helpline, and you guys, if anybody asks you, you can refer them to the number 211. It's just like 911, but it's the national hotline for emergency assistance. One more? We got time for one more, and then we're going to take it up.
That's it,
One more. I saw a hand back. Is it Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is sort of a thankless thing, conservatively whole. How and why did you get into it?
How? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
How and why did I get in? I actually got into food banking at the request of the previous executive director, who noticed a set of gifts and talents in myself that I had not recognized. And she asked me, basically she said, we want you to come be a food solicitor. I'm like, what's that? We want you to go around and talk. I'm like, really? You're going to pay me for that? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, how much? And she told me, and That's kind of it. Here I am, 20 years later, I'm still begging for food. So again, my name is Darren Boyd, and I thank you so much for your time.